Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Fourth Wave in Therapy. And I am absolutely honoured. I'm truly honoured in this episode to actually be joined by our very special guest. And I want to introduce you to Dr. Gabrielle Rutten. She is a medical doctor by background with early experience in internal medical research. Now, Gabrielle and I were just talking, I didn't share, but my daughter is pursuing the medicine pathway as well. But you began exploring practical integrative approaches to health and wellbeing along this journey. Gabrielle, of course, is trained in emotional freedom techniques, EFT, more than 23 years and been training practitioners internationally worldwide and grounded in gold standard EFT. We're going to start to unpack this and expanded into Optimal EFT. Gabrielle is a Gary Craig certified official EFT master, and it's a little bit about a sneak peek into what we're going to talk about today, because in 2026, which is the year that we're recording, Gabrielle stepped into a significant leadership role as the appointed successor to Gary Craig. And I'm having goosebumps as I read this, because anyone listening in that might know the EFT world knows that Gary has transitioned and passed, so has handed the reins to my very special guest online today. And Gabrielle is continuing the development and teaching of EFT in its full scope. And it is what we want to unpack today. So thank you and welcome to the Fourth Wave in Therapy, Gabrielle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. And yes, I just can't wait to dive in and share as much as we can with your audience. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I would love you to start purely because I have a daughter in the household who is pursuing the medical pathway, and my other daughter's pursuing the psychology pathway. So they're both, a little bit of mum in maybe both of them,
Nice.
I know. I must have rubbed off somewhere. You started as a medical doctor. So obviously that was your journey, that was your education. But somewhere in that journey, something made you, I don't know whether you are looking outside, you're seeking more. What was it? What was it that made you look for other approaches, and ultimately you've ended up in the EFT world? Tell us the story.
Yes. So yes, even during my studies, because in the Netherlands it's called studying medicine. That's, if you go to medical school, you study medicine, and that is exactly what you're studying. So early on, I thought, this can't be all there is to it, because they were just telling me what medication to prescribe for what symptoms. And I thought that was really weird. I liked biology in school, but I know I was very interested in how the body works, etc. Not so much the mind you, back then, but yes, how the body works. But I found that very strange. I did, however, finish medical school and became a regular doctor, the ones with the white coats and the stethoscopes, etc. Sure. And so I worked in internal medicine and ended up in doing clinical research, which still is a love of mine, in the sense that I'm really keen to not just do anything or follow anything that just sort of piques my interest, but I really want to know, so how does it work, and do we have evidence that it is working, and why is it working, etc. So I think all in all, I think I worked in a clinical setting for about 6 years, and I was truly unhappy with how, first of all, how especially doctors treated their patients, just like cases of symptoms, so to speak, not persons, and not interacting really with the person. I was more impressed with how the nursing staff would deal with the patients, so I was really unhappy. So I decided that I didn't like the focus on there's something wrong in your body, you can't do stuff, you need medication, prognosis, etc. And then a friend of mine turned to occupational medicine. I made that transition. Why? Because that focus on, so what is possible? What is still possible? Where do we need to meet, whatever you need to be able to work, etc. So I really liked that focus a lot better. Also, I liked the focus of being, in a working or functioning context and helping decide, what do you need to be able to work or do whatever you want to do. I mean, nobody has to work, in my opinion. So I did that for 10 years. I like that a lot better, but it's still really still so focused on there's something wrong. And then somebody took a NLP, neuro-linguistic programming course. One of the patients, the workers that I was coaching into staying into her work situation, and she came back after the course. She came back and she was really, changed. Like, she looked at things differently. She handled things differently. And I thought, so this is really interesting. What happened here? And that made me decide to go to that course and do neuro-linguistic program, as did Gary Craig.
Yeah.
Gary also
and I did too. It was
and you did too, exactly.
I did too. So there must be something around that field that I started there as well before EFT.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that is so interesting. Yes. I really enjoyed that field in the sense that you understand that we are programming ourselves constantly. We are learning our behavior. And that really, obviously in hindsight, that sort of laid down a nice foundation. Obviously, my medical knowledge is not lost, but I do use it in a completely different way. So NLP started me off, sort of turning away from the really, Western-oriented medical view of things and more to, so what happens in the mind and how do we, act the way we act and what can we, successfully change about that. And in that time, long story short, I read an interview from a pediatrician in the hospital that I took my training in Amsterdam. And she did something that was called integrative medicine. And I thought, hang on, that's interesting. So
what is this?
So what's this? Exactly. And so being familiar with the hospital, I really, in hindsight, these are those, those strange things that you think, so what made me do that? Because I wasn't that outgoing at that time, because I was in my early 30s, I think. Yeah, must be. I'm not, I don't keep track of history that good, but I was somewhere early 30s, and I just walked into the hospital, knew where the pediatric ward was, and knocked on her door and said, I would like to get to know you. Do you have time? Can we talk? So she was sort of surprised, but that got me started on this path of integrative medicine, which looks at, its foundation obviously is in Western medicine, but it also looks at all kinds of alternative methods and approaches and a more holistic view on things. So before long, I was board member of the Dutch Integrative Medicine Foundation.
Wow.
I did that for, I guess, some 6, 7, or 8 years, something like that. So we really worked on developing this view, this integrative medicine view. But it was still, firmly based on this Western idea of the body is, very intricate machine thingy. And, if you're ill, something went wrong. And that made me, in early 2003, I was away. I worked for the United Nations for 3 years. I was abroad. So I came back to the Netherlands and noticed that people were talking about the law of attraction. So I was thinking, so what is this? That, the little book that... So I went on internet and I looked up law of attraction. And then a coach using EFT, practicing the law of attraction. So I thought, EFT, now what is this? So I go abroad for 3 years and I completely lose oversight of what all these abbreviations are. So I looked up EFT.
What did you find?
And that...
What did you find when you looked up EFT?
I actually found Gary's website quite,
Excellent.
I ended up on his website Emo-free. I'm being trained as a doctor. I was thinking, weird, what's this? tapping on meridian points. God, are we going crazy? So I was really skeptical.
I'm glad because I was too. And it's nice when you hear someone else kind of go, oh, no, that seems a
Yeah,
bit strange. So,
that's
yes.
weird. But again, in hindsight, I was intrigued because I liked the guy. I liked Gary. I thought he was really nice and gentle. And I looked at a few of his videos, and then one of his videos said, "Just tap along." So I thought, well, nobody's watching. I'm alone in my study. Let's do this. So I started tapping along with what Gary was doing, and lo and behold,
Mm.
after a while, and I was intrigued and I felt calmer immediately. So I thought something is happening. And I did have some rudimentary knowledge about acupuncture and meridians, etc. And I wasn't, I wasn't completely against that in the sense that even though I was still, firmly rooted in the Western story, so to speak, I did find that very interesting. So I did understand that this was based on something to do with, energy and meridians and what have you. And that was because that was my very first purchase online with my credit card. And I was scared to do that because that was and I thought, ooh, and maybe, somebody will use my credit card, etc. But anyways, I did buy his video set and started looking at it. And in 3 months' time, that got me rid of my severe migraine headaches I had at the time.
Wow.
And like 6 months later, and it was like a hobby. I really enjoyed doing that. And 6 months later, my lower back pains that I had for 20 years were gone too. And so being, considering myself a smart cookie, I thought, something happened here. Let me dive in even further. And that got me started in EFT. So that's,
Fantastic.
short
I love hearing
version.
these stories, and you're such a pioneer in this world as well that I love that you were skeptical as well. It wasn't just me going to my colleague, what are you talking about? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And obviously decades later.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so most of our listeners would be a little bit familiar to just the EFT kind of world and tapping. But can you talk a little bit about, where the work evolved to gold standard EFT? So I too, and I still to this day own the set of DVDs from Gary Craig because my journey actually did start with his training and then obviously came to local people. But so tell us because I want to dive into optimal EFT, but the gold
Yes.
standard EFT, tell us what that represents.
Right. Yes. 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 Thank you for that opportunity. So here's the how it went. Probably nobody or hardly anybody knows that Gary really is a front runner because from the very start, when he started looking in, he studied with Roger Gallahan, and so he was looking at tapping on meridian points. But he was also a student of A Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
Yes, I am.
Yes, yes. And so from the very beginning, when he transitioned into, working in finance and having his own company into doing more coaching and personal development, etc., he was really keen to establish what he later on called optimal EFT. So from the very start, he wanted a more spiritual oriented way of working. However, when he shared this with the people around him, people were just like, whoa, what's this?
Yeah.
So he early on decided that's a bridge too far. I'm from the Netherlands. There's this movie, A Bridge Too Far. So
Yeah.
A Bridge Too Far. So he decided let's do something first. The first step is EFT tapping because there's more clear there's a more clear foundation on what we're doing because we're working with the meridian system, even though that back then was also considered strange, but still it was a smaller step to take than diving into a more spiritual approach. So so he started developing EFT tapping, released his manual
Yeah.
That I thought, I don't know. Were you engaged in the very beginning when Gary
Yes.
launched his manual? Yes.
Yes, and I still have a copy, and truly, this is why it's full circle. Our very, very first clinical trials that we ever ran at the university used that manual. So we did use the protocols, and I got to
Yes.
tell him that last year when I did.
Oh,
I had a
oh,
Zoom with
that is
him,
so nice.
which was wonderful. So yes, so we did. And then as
Yes.
years went on and the EFT manual and things like that, obviously the references got changed. But no, so, and I still have it. I still have it bound. I still have the drawings in there if anyone is familiar.
Yes.
Just the
Yes.
basic recipe and the little pictures, and, it was
And
fabulous.
the buzz with the
Yeah,
televisions,
yes, yes, all of
etc.
that. The
Yes, yes, yes,
batteries
yes.
and the, yes, yeah.
And the batteries. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I thought that was so inspiring that he shared this with the world, so to
Yeah,
speak. You just freely gave that away.
yeah,
Now, obviously, he himself said later on, I was a bit naive in thinking that people would stick to that protocol that I developed. Although, I mean, I should be honest in saying that he's recorded on his own video saying this is what I did, take it and develop it further, etc. So he did invite people to sort of develop it further, etc. But he also had this picture in mind that his original work would stay the same, but it did got diluted, I guess, in a sense. And this is the reason why after a sabbatical in 2010, he decided, okay, so now I just want to make sure that people understand that my original form, which did develop over time, because in the old days, he would do the startup phase
yeah,
3 times.
yeah.
And do the gamut procedure. That has been dropped as
Yeah,
such from
yeah.
the protocol that he established as the gold standard EFT protocol in
Mm,
2011. So
mm.
that's how that came about. Um, Meanwhile, in that sabbatical he took, he decided. So now, if I come back, I really want to focus on a more spiritual approach.
Mm.
And I'm so happy that he was able to launch that in 2014 and decided to call it Optimal EFT. So now we have EFT tapping and we have EFT meditation,
Right.
to just distinguish between the
Okay.
two. So basically, even Optimal EFT is his latest development, but it was his original plan. Isn't that
Yeah, and something
interesting?
I didn't know that actually was where he was coming from, but the structured protocol he put together was the first step that was, yeah, an easier bridge for people to kind of cross. Yeah, that's really interesting to know because I was unaware of that. I knew the iteration later when he came back, but
Right.
yeah, thank you for
Yes.
sharing that. So tell us a little bit more then about the EFT meditation, the optimal EFT.
Yes. So, in Dutch we say if you really you squeeze it down and make it flat. This is the expression we use in Dutch. EFT tapping is about uses tapping points. So there's a tapping protocol involved. EFT meditation, there's a meditation involved.
Mm.
Sure, but optimal EFT is so much more in the sense that it really invites you to go basically go on a personal spiritual journey, if you will. You don't have to be, spiritual in the sense, because I'm always a bit careful if people say, "Oh, I'm so spiritual." Uh, no, it's more about, there's a bigger picture. There is this organizing principle or universe or divine, whatever you want to call it. But um, our story doesn't stop with these little bodies running around in this realm, is what my view is. Is that your view too, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much more than that it is hard to kind of quantify sometimes, isn't it?
It is, it is, it is. But I'm, that's what the fourth wave is about.
Yeah.
It's about broadening our horizons, looking at the bigger picture. So optimal EFT is firmly based on the technicalities of EFT tapping. Because if you properly apply EFT tapping, you know that you have to translate whatever the problem is into the underlying stress patterns, and you have to translate these underlying stress patterns into the very specific events that started the stress pattern and are maintaining the stress pattern.
Sure.
Everybody knows this, I would assume. That same technicality still applies to optimal EFT. So yes, you have to identify, where did I learn, the behavior that I'm doing, or the negative reaction that I have, or the emotions that I have that I really don't want to have. So the technicalities are based in the same principles, but optimal EFT basically invites you to connect in whatever way you want to what Gary chose to call the unseen therapist.
Yeah. Okay.
And he gave that a female gender, because female energy sort of, most people find that a little more nourishing or caring than masculine energy. However, same as with EFT tapping, you have to customize the process. So if what we call the unseen therapist is more masculine for you, it's fine. You can say he. But in the guided meditation, he uses she, and the unseen therapist is the power, the force, the energy behind this all, or above this all, that really gently helps us get through this life, so to speak, in the sense that we're never alone. We're all connected. I mean, quantum physics tells you this. Gary, in his free ebook, he sort of rolls out the whole idea behind optimal EFT. So it's based in what he called new think, in the sense, the broader picture, more holistic, and this organizing principle, etc. And so what optimal EFT really tries to do is help you realize that we're not alone. You don't, there's this organizing principle. There is help out there if you are willing to ask for it, if you are willing to receive help, if you are willing to, surrender in a way, in a sense, and allow that help, that nurturing presence to guide you. Because in hindsight, I guess your listeners and my students and everybody we meet, we all have these moments where we think, in hindsight, so many things came together. There must have been some sort of plan. Not that everything has, been organized beforehand, but things come together in a neat way. Same for me, in discovering EFT as such. Yeah. And so optimal EFT, I'm digressing a bit, but here we go.
No,
so optimal EFT, you start again with identify, because you can do symptom focused EFT, as same with tapping, as well as working specifically. So you start with identifying a specific moment. You relive the moment so that you really activate the stress response that is linked to this moment, and then you do a guided meditation. If I, as a practitioner, work with somebody, it's really a guided meditation. I will talk you through it. Sure. But I also have the basic protocol, which everybody can download for free. And then you just read and memorize the steps until you're familiar with the steps. You take yourself through these steps, which means you become very still and quiet. And then you bring yourself in what Gary has described as a loving state as best as possible. Use whatever you need to enter this loving state, and a nice memory, a loving moment, a person, something in nature, anything goes. And then from that state of mind, which we need as people, unseen therapist obviously doesn't need that, but from that loving state, we then ask for help. We ask, please resolve this, or help me understand what is happening, or whatever you want to know. And then you do a silent part of the meditation. then you close that part of the meditation, and then you start again with reliving the moment so that you again test and see whether you can still activate the stress response. So the whole structure is still, it has a little technical steps, if you will, but there's you could even call it a loving kindness meditation in connection with what we call the unseen therapist.
Yeah. And tell me if I'm right in thinking the unseen therapist in that moment, because as you're talking through it, I'm imagining doing it. So in that moment, I'm in that state of loving kindness, and, maybe I've imagined being with my pet or, someone that loves me unconditionally. And then I ask in that moment to understand further why a certain behavioral pattern or whatever thought pattern or whatever might be happening. Is that an external asking, Gabrielle, or is it an internal asking that could be your higher sense of self, or is it more external, or does it not matter?
Well, in the end, it doesn't matter, but I'm convinced it's internal because
I feel like
what we call,
yeah, yes.
Well,
yes.
We're all connected. We're one. And so that divine spark, or however you want to see it, is in us. And what we call unseen therapist is in us. It's our higher self. It's your higher mind. It's spirit mind. It's you're tapping into what we really share, and where this beautiful, joyous, peaceful state of being, where everything is exactly as it should be. And I also, I always say the way we experience ourselves running around in these bodies, Gary called it body suits. I like that. Yeah. I tend to call it our little camper vans. I mean, we live in this body, and we move around in it, but these are our little camper vans. It's like a metaphor. It's like a projection, because in the end, I'm convinced that we're spirit. I mean, we're thought. So it's definitely mind over matter in that sense. And that is, I think, so cool about Optimal EFT, that it completely acknowledges that it is mind over matter. And if you want to heal, whatever you want to heal, your mental state, but also your bodily state, you have to heal your mind. It's mind over matter. And I love it. I love that that's, it all, brings that into one place where you can access that.
I love it too, because I love guided imagery. I love timeline therapy. I love anything that is accessing even our own inner mentor, which, I've got a couple of exercises around that as well.
Yes.
Can it be that I'm in that state, and obviously I ask for help, or I ask for, is it that I might receive an inspired thought or a memory comes to mind that would allow me to do something with that, and that could be with a different modality or something? Is it that kind of thing tends to happen? I might go back and double check my stress about a certain situation, but is it that I might take further steps or actions after that kind of session based on the information that I access that perhaps was already within me? Is that typical?
Well, this is a very good question, because there's several layers in doing Optimal EFT. I mean, like I said before, obviously, our ego really wants to keep us in stress. So any memory that is stressful, it will use to think, this looks like that, stress reaction on, etc. So yes, so there's this one level of Optimal EFT where you really very precisely make sure that you're severing the link between trigger and stress response. For that, you need to repeat this one specific event and go through the meditation until every single triggering detail of that event has been neutralized. More specifically, the trigger obviously isn't neutralized, your reaction is, because the link has been severed. That's EFT. Be that tapping or Optimal EFT. Yeah. And so you test this. So you make sure that, and in the end, and I work with people with mental problems, with physical problems, with severe complex PTSD and trauma, etc. EFT is done when you can relive whatever happened associatedly as if it's happening right now, and your stress reaction is absolutely, turned off and will not switch on again. That is EFT. So that's the one of the levels that Optimal brings about. But there's also this level where you can ask for help. How should I see this? What is happening here? And so depending on actually the meditation round, and also depending a bit on how well you are able to calm your mind, become very still and quiet, and not interfere with your thoughts, your own ego thoughts about what should happen or why it happened, and etc. So to the extent that you're able to really become very still and quiet, anything can happen in these meditations. So to give you a few examples, some people see images, like an image of what needs to happen, or an image of what really was the reason why something happened, or an image of total peace and happy reconnecting together, etc. Whatever the content of the specific event was. So some people see images, others would hear, can hear something. I've had various experiences in this sense. I sometimes see things. I sometimes hear things. It's not like a voice, that is talking to you, but it's in your mind. It's something. Sometimes it's after the meditation. I will walk into a room. I remember I asked this question during the meditation. What should I do? And then I walked into this really cute little bookstore in Amsterdam, and the books were organized really neatly. But there was this one book that was lying on top of the books, and that title. I read that title and I thought, that's the answer. So
yeah.
And sometimes, and Gary has many stories about this, and so do his, the members of Palace of Possibilities. Somebody will say something, and you realize that's the answer to my question. And so during the meditation, you can it can also be just your being in your loving moment, and not, you feel fine, and then only by reliving the moment you realize that things have changed. So the more you're able to sort of surrender and do nothing actively during the meditation, the better it works in that sense. And you can also ask a question and get an answer, either directly during the meditation in various forms or afterwards. So it's a fascinating process as such.
Oh, I just need the recording right now because I want to give this a go, Gabrielle. We'll make sure there's lots of resources, because I'm sure anyone listening, I need to download it and look at the steps. Can I ask, just because we've done lots and lots of research over the years, just with the standard EFT tapping part where people are physically tapping on the pressure points, but sometimes we do have patient populations who don't really like that sensation of tapping. It could be chronic pain patients, it may be sensory issues, range of different things. Do you find Optimal EFT probably is an answer for perhaps groups out there, or patients, clients who truly don't want the physical stimulation of actually tapping on a pressure point, that maybe Optimal EFT is an answer for some of that?
Most definitely, in the sense that, yes, if you don't like the physical tapping, you could also visualize tapping.
Yes.
I always suggest you can also visualize somebody else tapping on you. I have, quite a few clients of mine that visualize that I tap on them, which is, fine. It's they do it in a visualization as such, which is fine. So that would be an alternative if people don't like the tapping process as such. But Optimal EFT, over the years, I've been doing it for 8 years now. I think you need both. To be honest, I think if you really want to, do the full scope of EFT, emotional freedom techniques, this is the reason why the term is techniques.
Yes.
I should explain this.
Yes.
With an S, because Gary knew from the beginning that he would introduce the other form too. So emotional freedom techniques stands for EFT tapping and EFT meditation, both forms. And obviously,
wow, hang on. Let's just rewind that for a moment, because hang on a minute.
Yes.
That's quite profound, because most people in the
Yes.
EFT world, we're forever correcting, putting the S on the end anyway, but most people will think, oh, EFT techniques with an S is the 48 techniques that perhaps featured somewhere in a manual. That is not what you're saying. You're saying, no, it's
No.
EFT tapping and EFT meditation. That's a game changer.
Yes, it is,
I
isn't it?
love that.
Isn't it?
That is,
Yes,
I
yes,
love that. Thank you. Thank you so
yes.
much. I hope everyone listening in shares this and moves it forward.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, so there's lots of technical techniques within EFT tapping, and there's lots of technical techniques in EFT meditation or optimal EFT. But the reason for the S is because there's two official forms to work with EFT,
Oh, I
isn't
love
it?
it. That's
I
just amazing. That's just
and
amazing.
I'm and this is what I try to sort of you know, roll out a bit more or be more vocal about it and really bring to the table. There's two forms, and both are absolutely, absolutely brilliant. Um, EFT, you really need EFT tapping, especially if, there's a lot of agitation or there's a lot of fear or panic. It's much easier, literally much easier to tap on
Mm,
yourself or be tapped on
yeah.
than to do a meditation, obviously, for obvious reason. There's also a more professional reason. I think you need both, or you can't, stop doing EFT tapping and just completely do optimal EFT only, because if you do EFT tapping properly for severe trauma, you will guide your client really precisely through their trauma, step by step, from complete dissociation, or as much dissociation as is possible, to complete association, and only then are you done.
Mm,
But those steps are easier done with tapping and asking your client to keep their eyes open and keep eye contact, etc. So the whole trauma informed approach is absolutely essential, I think, for a good EFT as such.
yeah.
So for optimal EFT, the process is a little more free flowing, and there's more, you still need to carefully instruct the client so that they don't, because we are so used to thinking, analyzing, telling ourselves the story and thinking, why is this happening? And yesterday it happened like this. And before you know it, your mind goes off and you're in your own story again. And that's just what we need to train for, so that we don't do that during the meditation. And so the meditation is a little more free flowing, which gives it a little less control as an EFT practitioner if you want to do trauma. So you need both.
I
I
love that. I
completely
just
forgot
love
my.
that you've said that, yeah, they both have a
Oh
place.
yes.
They both go
Oh
together.
yes.
He had them in the beginning, way back in the beginning, as both having a role. I love that you've kind of, shared how they
Right.
both fit with each other, and I truly hope that, yeah, this optimal EFT wave that has now come into play, certainly been there for
Yes.
decades,
Yes.
yeah, really starts to get more understood and used and utilized out there.
Yes. And because I was going to say, I completely lost my train of thought because I wanted to say
No,
something
sorry,
else.
I
So this
interrupted
is.
you.
No, 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 definitely not. But I sometimes digress and then think, what was I saying? So here we go. Here we go. So, there's lots of similarities in a sense between EFT tapping and EFT meditation. Um, in practice, we have noticed, we is the people that use optimal EFT, that optimal EFT, the generalization effect is,
Mm,
quite a bit larger in EFT optimal as compared to EFT tapping.
yeah, wow.
And I've noticed that with EFT, optimal EFT, people tend to get in a more profound, peaceful state. So, um, I've worked with hundreds of people now with optimal EFT, and I just want to point out, you don't have to be spiritual to do optimal EFT as such. I mean, if you just higher self or a connection with nature is fine too. I mean, you don't have to be, a Buddhist to be able to do
Mm,
optimal EFT. But I've noticed that quite a few people are, because you do the meditation after one round, you close you close off the round, and then people, I ask them to break state, open their eyes, and quite often clients will go, whoa, I haven't felt this peaceful in a long, long time.
Wow.
So I just want to point that out, that optimal EFT, I mean, obviously EFT tapping does this too, if you properly do this. I always say EFT tapping is a little bit more handiwork, like hands-on work, and it's a little more technical and a little more step by step by step, whereas optimal EFT, you still need that technical part so that you really test whether the specific moment has been neutralized and the trigger doesn't work anymore, so the link has been severed. But there is a more general reaction into joyfulness and peacefulness, which is beautiful.
Yeah, well, who doesn't want that? That's what every client's looking for that walks through a door. Absolutely. Now, I would love, and I would kick myself if I didn't ask this, because you're a medical doctor, you've got the background, and you've embraced all of these kind of, techniques that are really embodied approaches. How do you explain what is happening here with these approaches, whether or not we are accessing something internal that's wisdom and our unseen therapist, or we're actively tapping on acupressure points? Why do you think these things are working? And I know this extends to other embodied approaches as well. It's not just unique here, but tell me, tell me what's happening.
Explain. So here's how I see this. So yes, we have a body. Yes, there's organs, there's a nervous system, there's all kinds of structures that are basically managed from the brain. But the brain is not our mind. The brain is an organ, like the liver, like the spleen, and so it's a very important organ in the sense that it's more like a relay station, or like a radio. It receives information and it sends out information, but it also is a very important relay station between our mind and our body. But our mind is really the activating factor, however you want to see that, from our body. How do I know this? If I were to drop dead here, that would be unfortunate, because that would be a very short podcast as such, but you don't have to be afraid that my body would stand up and start doing things. So your body is inert. It doesn't do anything. And we know this, whether we've seen it. Obviously, I've seen lots of dead people in the course of my professional life. The body, where, when your spirit, when your personality, your consciousness has left your body really is... how do you call that in English? In Dutch we say it's just the remainder, remainder material. It's nothing.
Yeah, it's just
how do you say that in English?
Well, it's kind of like the vessel, or the...
Right.
I was thinking of your caravan analogy. What did you call it?
Yes, a little camper van.
It's just the camper vans left on the side of the road, like the camper vans.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Yes. In the scrapyard, the caravan. The little camper van in the scrapyard. So your body is, in my opinion, and I've been working with people, for over 40 years, more than 20 years with EFT, and I have absolutely come to the conclusion that it is mind over matter, always. And so what happens, in my view, if you literally, quite often on a subconscious level, but if you literally change your mind about something, things will change in your body too. You will give other impulses to the body. So if we translate it into stress physiology, yes, EFTs, switches the body from the sympathetic stress mode to the parasympathetic relaxation mode. Fine. That's just an explanation of how things are organized in the body. That switch is managed from your mind. And there's beautiful research in the 50s, in the last century. Libet and others did research with functional MRI, showing that before before there's an emotional reaction, something happens in the mind. So there is some kind of, something happening there, and in less than a nanosecond, you think something, you come to a conclusion. You perceive something, you come to a conclusion, and that decides whether your stress reaction is turned on or not. Through the amygdala, fine. It's all, these organic substrates. There's also research on what meditation does. And if you look at MRI from really, really intense Buddhist, with intense meditation, the area of the amygdala shrinks in the brain, which translate into there's less, activation of the amygdala, because the amygdala would be is the start point for the stress reaction. So all in all, whether you explain this through the stress physiology of your brain, whatever happens in the brain with the amygdala, or you explain this from a mind perspective, your mind switches off the stress mode in your body. Yes, you can use a touching and bodily approaches, which is beautiful. Why? Because that orients us on the body, and we express ourselves through our body. So our body is important. Breathing is important. Tapping in and of itself has a function because it stimulates these meridian points. But it's just an entrance.
Yeah.
Meditation does the same. And I think the bridge would be that even if you do surrogate EFT, either tapping on yourself or just imagining tapping for somebody else, something happens in the other person. That can never be if, actually touching the meridian points, or actually, that would be the important thing. Yes, I mean, yes, cortisol goes down, etc. Endorphins go, is it endorphins? What is it in English?
Endocrine? No. Endorphins.
Endorphins. So yes. So this is my Donglish. My Donglish is showing its face here. So, anyways, so whatever level you choose, it's your mind that switches of whatever the reason is for you to think that you need to be in stress mode because you are threatened. You are not really, most of the times you're not really threatened, but you only think that you're under threat. So that would be the starting point of most, stress reactions in our daily lives, wouldn't it?
And I think you make a really interesting point there about surrogate tapping, because we don't have any research on this, except if you look in the quantum physics kind of realm. But
yes,
anyone listening in that might be familiar, surrogate tapping might be that you're imagining tapping but for somebody else, and that can include pets. So I do know, and I have chatted over the years to a couple of veterinarians and equine therapists, and they have the owner tap on themselves, not physically on the pet, but the pet changes in their behavior, and they're not physically actually tapping on them. And obviously at a distance, things like Reiki and energy healing can be done at a distance. Loads of research done on those type of modalities, and they show that change still happens, which I think comes back to your point that we may not actually have to physically, and you mentioned you can imagine tapping and you can still get the same outcomes. There's 2 German fMRI studies now on imagine tapping inside the machine, and they showed the brain still did its thing. So you don't did Gary know this ahead of time? You don't actually need the physical touch part on a meridian endpoint, or did he intuitively just want to take it a step further?
No, so Gary dedicated in hindsight 30 years of his life to develop EFT. I worked with him rather closely for the last 12 years of this period. So we did a lot of talking, especially because we also wrote the book EFT from A to Z. So Gary, as I said, was an ardent student of A Course in Miracles. In the Course of Miracles, it is explained that it is mind over matter, and if you want to heal yourself, you have to heal your mind. Healing happens in the mind. So he was from the very beginning quite aware of the fact that we need to heal our minds and how we perceive things and how we think, and how we come to our negative conclusions, etc. So he was well aware of that, but he did, very consciously choose to use an approach that has, a basis in a more physical approach as such, tapping, acupressure. But he knew, and yeah, absolutely, yes, he was well aware. Yes,
and
well aware.
he was a wise man to know that the world may have needed a stepped approach. Not only the people he was sharing it with, but even from our point of view and acceptance of these things, and ultimately one day medical systems embracing them. The stepped approach sometimes is just
yes.
Yeah.
So major guidance there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Major. His own internal
yes.
unseen therapist was at play already.
Oh yes, so for sure.
Now look, you're stepping into some gigantic shoes here, so I've no idea what size shoe Gary Craig wore, but you have taken on the leadership, and I am personally, really, really happy about connecting with you here and hearing this, because I just think what a wonderful kind of legacy that, has come your way that you're taking forward. What do you hope, or what is your vision then of EFT tapping, EFT meditation, optimal EFT and the gold standard approach? Tell the world, what is Gabrielle going to do?
Oh no, no pressure. So yes, my focus, my wish actually is that we in EFT land, we come together. We don't, I think there's too much division.
Yeah.
I think that, so little differences, there's little differences here, here and big differences, obviously. I think the most ideal development in EFT land would be that we truly come together as one in EFT, the EFT community as such, that we find each other and inspire each other to really, really make sure that people, but whether they want to use it as a self-help method or you want to use it professionally, that we really compare notes and distill truly the best practices of EFT as such, both forms. Obviously I want to both forms to be embraced by the world. And so on the one hand, I think you're a good practitioner if you understand that only if you're what they call a healed healer, if you do your own work, if you take responsibility to really walk your talk and use EFT to resolve stress patterns and unwanted behavior in a way that gives you space, room to be there for the other, because we don't do anything. I mean, we have to get ourselves out of the way, and we're only making this process possible. And yes, there's technical details, obviously. I'm very fanatical about that. But what I want to bring to the table is let's unite and develop EFT in a very precise way so that everybody can reap benefits, be that you as the professional and doing EFT with your clients, and everybody wants to use it themselves. So I'm looking for, unity, cooperation, professional courtesy. Yeah,
I love that. And I'm with you. So you heard it here first, everybody. It's about alignment, and I'm with you. I think everyone's got so much to offer, and coming together, it's like the Gestalt kind of concept of, the parts can add up to be more, and the people that benefit from that are the people out there in the world who need all of EFT. They will benefit the most. So
Yes.
I'm
yes.
I'm with you. Alignment, unity,
Good.
collaboration. Right, let's just put it down on
Right.
paper.
Let,
All right.
I
Watch
mean,
this
I mean,
space. We don't
emotion.
know. Yeah.
Yes. But you see the term emotional freedom. You can't seriously think you're a good EFTer if you're not emotionally free and are able to relate with everybody.
Yeah.
We're brothers and sisters. We're all equal members of one family. What the world needs is that we take responsibility to become the most loving version ourselves, the most emotional free. Because I think freedom is a very, very, very important concept here. And if we are free to be ourselves, what we really are, as Gary said, we can move the world. We will, contribute to a better world. If we hold on to grievances, if we do not use EFT, for what it's meant to help you with, you're not contributing as fully as you could.
Yeah.
So emotional freedom, folks, that's what it is about. Freedom.
It is. And if anyone listening right now says, yeah, I want to take this further, I want to do some more personal work, I want to upskill myself a little bit, and do that inner work, and they want to explore optimal EFT, what can they do? Tell us where they can go.
Yes. So the easiest step would be to buy the book, which is called EFT from A to Z, which I co-authored with Gary. So
make sure the link's below, everybody. Yeah.
Yes. So just to point out, it's the only book, and I'm so happy that we got to finish it, because the only book about what Gary calls official EFT, which means it encapsulates both forms. So in the first half of the book, we explain both forms, or I explain both forms, however you want to see it, and how to do it. And then the second half of the book, we discuss over 200 physical symptoms and ailments and mental problems, and how to deal with that with both forms of EFT. So it gives you little protocols to work with.
Oh, fantastic.
And that would be,
yes. Wow.
So if people think, because yes, on the one hand, EFT has this technical base, but there is room for protocols in the sense that I have various protocols for addiction, for endometriosis, for physical problems, for whatever. I have, I'm developing a lot of protocols together with my group of EFT masters in my master program. And so if they want to explore EFT, there's some videos on my YouTube channel, which you can tap or meditate along with, because I explain EFT. There's the book, and then a step further for people that want to learn it for themselves. I do a course, an EFT course, in which I teach both forms, and they get one personal consultation with me, in which I make an action plan of how to work with both forms to really, be successful in tackling your own stuff. If you're a professional, I do EFT, gold standard EFT training for professionals, and I do optimal EFT training for professionals. And those can be found on my website, which is called Novet EFT.
And we have that all linked below, everybody. So it's nice and easy for you. You can just click the link and go and find Gabrielle. This has been, I opened with, full circle moment where I got to chat with Gary late last year, and now I've been able to connect with you and the good work that you're going to take forward out of this. And it's been wonderful. I've learned a couple of things here, Gabrielle, today that I'm like, I did not know that, and I thought I knew a lot, but that is amazing. And I guess I feel full in my heart to hear that, you want unity moving forward. And lots of things that have happened in the EFT kind of space, and people kind of, perhaps finding other ways to blend different things and, I don't know, make it this way and that way. And social media has just been a whole different other kind of kettle of fish out there. But for unity and, ultimately for personal healing and freedom, like you say, that's the essence there, isn't it? I'm so glad to have shared this hour with you, and I truly encourage everybody to explore optimal EFT, and particularly lots of people listening in are practitioners and maybe looking for something kind of, really to extend beyond. And it really was Gary's initial kind of offering that he wanted to make to the world. So it's lovely to hear how that came into play. Gabrielle, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your leadership in this space. I can't wait to see how the future evolves.
Thank you so much, Peta, for having me. I loved it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you again. Please share this with anyone out there you think might benefit, and absolutely go and explore Gabrielle's resources further. We'll see you again in another episode.